Welcome, everybody. This is the last session today for the first day of the BigBlueButton 2024 World Conference. So Samuel Weirich will speak about PILOS, which is a project that has been ongoing for a few years, which provides a front end and recording management to BigBlueButton. And Samuel is a university lecturer for data protection and data security in medicine at THM, University of Applied Sciences. And Samuel, turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so it's an honor for me to be back here at the EBB World for another time to talk to you about PILOS, our front end for BigBlueButton, and what's new about this. So this should be both an introduction to the system for those who haven't heard about it yet, but also an update for those who have heard about it or might use it, and kind of get to know the system and what's going to happen in the future. So the agenda for today will be, therefore, first to talk about the background, to give you an overview of the software, what use case it has been built for, and what are the new features, what has changed, and what are the major improvements that we will bring to version 4. That's kind of just a few weeks down the road. How is the upgrade process, so how you can migrate from PILOS 2, PILOS 3 to PILOS 4 now. What's the roadmap? What are the new features to come in the future? And then room for question and answer. So actually, this slide looks quite similar to a slide that Fred Dixon usually shows to introduce BigBlueButton and show the differences between video conferencing and the virtual classroom. And if we look at the different tools that you can use with BigBlueButton, you will see that that green light is mainly a tool that's very easy to use, where you can start a video conference with just a few clicks, but you don't have a huge amount of configuration options. And on the other hand, there are tools that are specifically designed for learning and for virtual classrooms. And BigBlueButton really has nice integrations with this, for example, with the Moodle plugin. And so kind of these are two software solutions that you can use for virtual classroom, that you can use for video conferencing. And you can both use them for the other purpose, but they are not mainly designed for this. And so the question is, where do we think PILOS might fit into? And even if Fred says the circle in the middle needs to be a bit smaller, it needed to be big enough for our word to fit in. So kind of in the center, we think there's PILOS, because PILOS should be a solution that works well for virtual classroom, but also works well for just a general video conference solution. And when we built the system for our university, we had a few different user groups in mind that we wanted to please and have a system that's really easy for them. And kind of the main three people groups were kind of, on one side, the teachers that want to have effective lectures and kind of get the engagement with the students. And for the students, it should be easy to participate, easy to engage, easy to find the rooms and get into this without having to search where kind of the room links are and the access code and all of this. And they also want to access some materials that are produced during the lecture, so kind of the slides, but also the recordings. And then we have staff, and the staff might want to use BigBlueButton just as a general purpose system for video conferencing, for different meetings, for all those internal decisions that have to be made, and where video conferencing is just a very easy solution to bring people together. And then we also have this non-primary group. They are the admins and the support team that should help manage the servers, the different types of video conferences that should be held there, and also supporting them if there are any issues. So we wanted to create a solution that kind of works for all of those different kinds of users, but also works for a lot of different use cases for the kind of video conferencing. So for example, for a lecture, for a virtual exam, for a virtual office, So it's kind of a replacement for students that don't have to come to the office to speak to a teacher, and also kind of for virtual meetings. And we think PILOS is a tool that can accommodate all of this in quite a nice way. And so this is a slide from last year where I introduced a lot of different features that are part of PILOS. If you didn't watch the recording from last year, you can do this in the end of the session. But kind of these are a few major features of the software, and I highlighted a few in dark that are kind of new and that I want to talk about today. So one major feature is the introduction of recordings, so that you can manage recordings inside of PILOS. One change is about the Docker deployment. We optimized this a lot. And then we have a few new algorithms and optimizations regarding the load balancing and the server management, and a brand new layout for the dashboard for kind of the place where the users start and where they can manage their rooms and find the rooms they want to join. So the question is, why did we create version 4? Why did we increase this major version number? Why didn't we just update the existing PILOS versions? And the reason for this is that we had a few main architectural issues that we had to deal with. One is kind of for the technology and how PILOS is built. We have the separation between a backend and a front end. And the front end was built using Vue 2 when we started this project. And Vue 2 was deprecated and had end of life in the end of 2023. And the UI library that we use for this didn't exist yet for version 3. And that's still not the case today. So we had to refactor our whole front end to find a solution that is well supported and well documented and that we can build upon. And then on the back end, we had quite a large Docker image that we wanted to reduce to have it smaller to deploy. But also the old Docker image and how it was built had quite a long time to boot. And we wanted to reduce this to have a lower time for maintenance. And we also wanted to increase the capacity of PILOS by allowing horizontal scaling that wasn't possible before. And we had one main technical issue that was, as soon as the front end and the BigBlueButton service, as soon as the connection there was lost, then the PILOS room and the meeting itself, they were disconnected. And so users were unable to join the same meeting again, kind of similar issues that you sometimes experience with different other load balancers. And so the solutions that we came up with were kind of this new front end. We had to refactor this. We optimized it, added a few new features. And on the backend side, we changed the Docker containers, the composer setup, and found a new algorithm for what we call the server health. So how healthy is the connection between the front end and the backend, the different BigBlueButton servers. So what are the different features that are new and what are the main changes? So first of all, this is a look at our new dashboard. Yeah, it's kind of the rooms overview. As soon as the user logs in, you can see kind of all the different rooms that are created by you or that are shared with you. This is an example of kind of how my dashboard usually looks like. So you have a few rooms that are currently running. They are marked in green, so you can see them at first glance. But you can also see kind of different room types. So you can see this is a virtual office. Then we have an exam, a lecture, different rooms. Some are created by me and some are created by a colleague. You can see when they are last run. And so that's kind of the first view that you get as soon as you log in. You can see all your rooms displayed here, and you can also search for them. So if you have a list that's kind of longer than the items that are shown in one page, you can search for the name or kind of for the creator of the room, and then kind of the list is filtered accordingly. You can also filter the rooms and say, I only want to view kind of meetings or exams, lectures, and kind of that's all configurable by the administrator. And then you can also change the sorting. So by default, kind of new rooms and that are started few days ago kind of are in the front, and then meetings that are longer ago that are at the back. You can also kind of view public rooms. So it's possible to say this room should be found by everyone that has a user account, and then kind of they are publicly available, so you can search for the rooms, similar to kind of a search view or search course search in Moodle or other learning management systems. And if you have too many rooms, like I have sometimes, it might be hard to find a room quickly that you want to revisit or start and join. And therefore, you can mark those rooms as your favorite rooms simply by clicking on this star icon, and then you can filter them by your favorites, and then kind of it's just one click, and then the list is filtered by your favorite rooms, and then it's easier for you to find the rooms and access them. Then inside of a room, as soon as you click on it, we have refactored a lot of the layout and kind of reduced the complexity of this and moved it to different places to have a more cleaner look, and that it's not that overwhelming for new users as soon as they kind of visit this room page here. We also optimize this for users that are using BigBlueButton on mobile devices, and at least for our students, that's quite a portion of users that are using it on mobile devices, and this system was optimized but not highly optimized for mobile users, and so we refactored a lot kind of old tabular layouts to fit more for mobile users, and then kind of just a few nice features that kind of it's easier for you to find the room if you have many tabs open by kind of showing you the room name in the tab, or for users that are coming a bit later to the meeting, that they already see how many users already joined this BigBlueButton meeting. There you can then see kind of the number of users that are already part of this meeting kind of in the top here in the menu of this room. Inside the room settings, if you have looked into PILOS before, you know that PILOS has a lot of different options that you can configure, nearly everything that the API offers. But over the time, these settings grew and became more, and that became overwhelming for a lot of users. And therefore, we introduced a new concept that we call kind of the expert mode. And if you don't call yourself an expert in video conferencing and configuring BigBlueButton, then you only have a few settings that are visible that you can see here. So first, it's kind of the type. What kind of room is it? The room name, access code, should the room be accessible by guests, and then a description for the start page where you can find a few informations about the room. And if you feel comfortable to configure it a bit more, then you can become an expert. You can activate the expert mode, and you will then have a whole list of different features that you can configure and customize for your specific needs. What's also a new feature is that you can now transfer the room. So if you change, so that if the lecture changes and someone else is taking the same class next semester, you can just transfer the room with all the content and all the configurations, all the recordings in there. Or if someone kind of is leaving the company, you can also kind of hand over that meeting to someone else. So these are kind of the settings that you can do, and a lot more if you are the expert. And the way that the room type and those settings are linked is that kind of the setting is giving you a preset. And then as soon as you activate the expert mode, then you can customize those presets. And if you have the expert mode disabled, then those presets apply for this meeting. But it's also possible to restrict the usage of those custom features. So you can, as the admin, you can restrict what features or what settings the user can customize and what settings should be enforced for that specific room type. And then you can limit the usage of that room type for different user groups. And that's how it looks like if you configure the room type. You can see all the different room features, and then you can set the default value. So mainly it's kind of different toggle switches, but also kind of different select items. And then you can enforce them and say, okay, this setting cannot be changed by the user. And you can also pass some additional API parameters to make it more flexible for new features that are coming to BigBlueButton. For example, the disabled features is a nice way kind of to customize the behavior of BigBlueButton. For the server management that's built in here, you can add your own the different BigBlueButton servers that you have control over, but you could also set up a Scalite server in here, or kind of the other load balancer tools that are out there. You can also add them as a virtual server here. And then for each server, you can see what state they are in. So you can enable them, you can disable them, or you can drain them, so that all meetings that are currently running still run until they are finished, but no new meetings are added to this server. So that's kind of a nice way for kind of getting everyone out of the server, so you can start an upgrade of this server. And then we also have the connection monitoring here, where the front end is polling the server in a regular interval to figure out if all the meetings that should be there are still there, and if the connection is stable. And if this is not the case, then this connection can change between the state of online, offline, if they are not reachable for a long time, and then faulty kind of for the state in between. And that should reduce this issue with BigBlueButton servers and meetings being disconnected, because in the faulty state, the connection is kind of restored as soon as the server is back online. And if the server is really down or crashed, then the server becomes offline, and then a new meeting can be started. And that's thanks by a new algorithm that was contributed by Marcel Helkamp, someone from the BigBlueButton community that really put a lot of thought into designing this algorithm for PILOS. And if your API allows you to publish the different versions of BigBlueButton, then you can also have a list of the different BigBlueButton versions. And for me now, I can see that there are a few meetings that are still running on 2.7.7. And so I know, okay, those need to be updated to have the latest version installed there. And you can also monitor your load for the different servers. So how many meetings are there, how many participants, and how many videos, something that you can also do with other monitoring tools, but it's baked into this video conferencing solution here. And now that's kind of a brand new feature that we're really proud that will come to PILOS 4, is the management of recordings. And this feature was missing for a long time because we didn't really like the way the recordings are stored on the different BigBlueButton servers. And we also didn't want to rely on a load balancer to handle this, because PILOS has some load balancer features built into. So the only solution that was possible was that the recordings are stored on the front end itself. So PILOS is taking the recordings and archiving them inside the front end, and you can then access them via the front end. That's possible because the BigBlueButton recording player, that's a separate repository that we pull into the product, and then we kind of launch it, and you can access the recordings via this front end. And one major advantage of this is that we have a maximum protection of the recordings, because all requests to the recordings are passing through the application and are checked on each request. So we can really limit the visibility of the recordings to different user groups and change it on the fly. How the recordings come into BigBlueButton, kind of it's nearly the same process as it would work for Scalite. So there's a post-publish script that's kind of listening to some special tags of PILOS, and then kind of sends this recording to PILOS, and it's then archived there. And a few new features that we added here is that you can also download the raw recording files. That's sometimes necessary if you want to publish the recording on other video platforms. Then the room owner can download the raw recording files. So for example, the MP4 file, and then kind of publish it to other video platforms. But as the raw recording data might be very big, you can also kind of filter this by an allow list. And before they join, the users are informed that this recording is that this meeting might be recorded, and then they have to consent, and it's an optional opt-in for them to kind of allow that their video is recorded for the GDPR purposes, and if they don't opt in, then their video image is kind of missing in the final recording. The Docker image, I said in the beginning that it was quite large, and we were able to reduce this by 25%. So now it's 110 megabytes smaller. and we separated the containers. Before it was kind of one large container, and now it's the same image, but it has different purposes where it's used for. So one is the application itself. Then we have a queue worker that's kind of doing some tasks that should be run asynchronous. And then we have a scheduler for different features that should be run every 1 minute, every 2 minutes, every day, and so on. Then we added Redis as a cache and queue engine to allow for this horizontal scaling, that they share kind of the same knowledge about the different user sessions and the different states of the queues and schedules. Then we allowed the users to customize the Docker container by adding more parameters to kind of customize Nginx inside of the container and PHP. You can skip the initialization, instead kind of use a pre-built to kind of pre-build the front end to your specific needs, and also a command line interface for commonly used tasks that you need to administrate PILOS. Kind of most features you can change via the user interface. And then because on the back end, we use Laravel as kind of the framework system, we also added a few new Laravel monitoring tools. So one is Laravel Pulse, so you can have a very nice overview of the state of your applications, the different users, the load, your storage, and also kind of a monitoring tool for your queue where you can restart and debug different queue items that might fail. For example, the recording, if there's something wrong, then you can just have a look at it in the user interface here and kind of restart importing this recording. We also worked on the documentation. At the moment, we have finished the documentation for installing this software and kind of configuring it and kind of the developers. And we're planning to add more documentation for how to administer the solution, so how the UI can be used both for the users and the admins, but it's a replacement for the old Markdown files. And now this is also based on Docusaurus, like the BigBlueButton documentation, and it's now versioned, so you can change between the different versions of PILOS in the browser. And so this is kind of one of my last slides on the other changes that are introduced here. So one thing was focusing on the security. We added some content security policy, and we updated some packages. We changed this load calculation, but you can also customize this if you develop your own plugin. We added a small plugin architecture so you can override kind of this feature. We added some Cypress end-to-end tests, so it's testing kind of the whole system. We simplified the theming and a few other customization things, and reduced the complexity of the configuration of PILOS to kind of your system. And now just a brief look on how you can upgrade, how you can migrate from PILOS 2, PILOS 3 to PILOS 4. And it's as simple as stopping the current container. Then in your Docker Compose file, you have to replace the image with the new tag. And then you have to walk through the documentation to adjust some env file settings kind of that were renamed or replaced. Then in case that you had some customizations for the locales or for the theming, then you might have to change a few things there. You have to add a new Redis server. Then you upgrade the database via a command line command, and then you can start, and then you're ready to go, and then you have PILOS 4 installed. What's on the roadmap? What is to come? We want to introduce OpenID as our fourth identity provider. So right now we have the local user management, we have LDAP, and we have Shibboleth via the Apache web server. And now we want to also add OpenID Connect as the fourth option. Then we want to notify the users as soon as they have been added to a room, so they quickly know that there's a new room available for them. We want to add more logging so administrators can more easily track what's happening in the system. we want to allow custom URLs for the rooms. So right now it's like in Greenlight, it's just a random combination of numbers and letters, and we want to give the user the option to set a friendlier name that's easier to memorize, and also an API how you can manage your servers, your server pools, so it's easier to integrate into tools like Ansible. Kind of that's what's to come for version 4.1, and then in the future we want to revision the theming and make it easier to customize in the UI, and introduce more tools that are very good for general video conferencing, like scheduling meetings, sending invitations, having a calendar, and so on. Yeah, so that was my brief introduction to PILOS 4. What are the main features and what is coming in the future? And now I'm ready for your questions, for your feedback, and open for your ideas, your suggestions for this project in the future. Thank you very much.
Samuel, that's very impressive. If anyone has questions, please just type in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask Samuel. I'll start off. Samuel, how many sites or how many universities are using PILOS?
So right now, I don't have the great overview. We don't track our users. So I know that our university is using it, and I know that in the University of Osnabrück, they are not using it because they have an LMS, but kind of for the German community meeting, we're using PILOS. And there are a few universities that are interested into using this, and the main reason for them why they're not using it yet, or why they haven't used it yet, was kind of this missing recording feature. And I expect that more universities will join as soon as this feature is in there. But we also have contact to different corporate companies that are interested in using it, and that also, for example, funded this recording feature. So they want to use it for kind of general video conferencing, because it's important for their data sovereignty. So we always have kind of both user groups in mind.
Nice. Any questions from, oh, Weimar?
Yeah, there's also this Helmholtz AAE in Germany. Do you know if this is using it? Or have there instances which is using by HIFIS?
I don't know. They haven't contacted me, so I'm not aware of this. But I know one university, the Goethe University in Frankfurt, they are using it. Kind of that's the one other university I'm aware of.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
Just another question. I think it can be used together with the Greenlight. So it's just different rooms then.
Maybe you could repeat your question.
Yeah, when we have now Greenlight 3, and I think
Yes.
I can use it parallel. So, but there's just new rooms then, or can I migrate rooms from Greenlight 3 into the system?
Yeah, so you could use them in parallel, so that would work if you have a load balancer behind it. So if PILOS and Greenlight are using the same load balancer, that should work. We don't have a migration for Greenlight 3, but we have a migration for Greenlight 2. So if you're on a Greenlight 2 system, then you can migrate all your rooms to PILOS you can also migrate your Scalite recordings, and then you can use them in PILOS, and you can also keep kind of all your old Greenlight URLs and keep reusing them. There's a compatibility mode that's built into PILOS, and if you enable this, kind of all the Greenlight version 2 URLs still work in the system. You're welcome.
Thank you, Samuel, for your presentation. If there are no more questions, I think we will stop the recording now. And we'd like to invite everyone to join us tomorrow for the second day of the conference.